Is the Israel-Hamas war about to be over? Is the Middle East going to be a place for prosperity, for economic cooperation? All of this and more. And we have the answers, which are not very hard to tell you about the 21-point plan of Donald Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu. Mati, fast answer. Yes or no? Are we going to have peace?
No. But here's...
That was too fast.
But here's the good news.
I built it up for a little bit more than that.
I've already been prepared. Here's the good news. We're in a very, very special time right now where in the backdrop of the UN General Assembly and the speeches by Prime Minister Netanyahu, Trump, and all the other cuckoos who started to recognize the Palestinian state in a unilateral sense, the U.S. government, together with the Israeli, is presenting their plan for the future. And I want to just frame this for a second. This is important. This is the kind of things that people talk about 10, 15 years later, and they quote them. It's like Netanyahu's Bar-Ilan University speech. It's like the Cairo University speech for Obama. It's like Bring Down the Wall, Mr. Gorbachev by Reagan.
Cool. It's like a big stuff coming up.
It's a big thing.
Yeah.
We're recording this because of the Jewish holidays, just before Netanyahu and Trump make their public announcement. Mm-hmm. So we don't know what's going to be in there, but we do know what the plan says.
Yeah, we know the plan because they have been working on it. And by they, it's like the officials of the Trump administration together with the Netanyahu officials that are in New York. Netanyahu canceled all his meetings before his meeting with Donald Trump to go over this 21-point plan to make sure that he understands and likes most of the points. There are some points that Israel is not so happy about. But before that, Tomer, maybe you tell our viewers what they should do in order to keep listening to this show.
So just before we dive into the content, that's the time to share, like, comment, and of course...
I want to say something about this. Subscribe. Yesterday, I was speaking to a group of people that came to the country, and I quoted you, Tomer. I said, you don't understand. We're living in an age of media warfare where there's a massive number of people, around the world who are spreading lies intentionally, who are funding the deception machine intentionally. And then there's a couple people or a handful of organizations that are trying to spread the truth. And the way to get the algorithm to recognize that there's another message is to like, to share, and to subscribe. It's that simple. The only way we get this message out to people is when people organically share it. We don't put money behind ads. We don't buy, likes and shares from bots in Bangalore, India, or other countries, not just India. This is only when the viewers of this show and other shows, when they like it, they share it and they subscribe to the channel.
Yeah, and by the way, and by the way, I mean, we like real people. So if you're coming to Israel, come give us a call. Talk to your tour guide. Tell him to bring you guys into our studio. Invite us for lunch. We like to eat. Mati and I, we very much like to eat good food.
I think they know, Yair.
And we'd love to sit with you, meet you in person. Come be here in the podcast with us. We have some guests over from,
Hemet, California.
Yeah, Hemet, California.
Hemet, California, sorry.
Yeah, Hemet, California. And it's really amazing to see that in this time, more than 720 days of war, Christians come here to stand with Israel, and it means the world to us. Seriously. So first of all, thank you for coming here. Thank you for standing for the truth, for praying for the peace of Jerusalem. Really. And Mati, let's break down this 21 plan, first of all. Okay?
Well, let's talk about how we got here.
Yeah.
We got here to this wall?
No. This 21.
To the studio?
So let's frame this conversation. This plan is an attempt that's been months in the making by the U.S. and Israeli administration to try to pull together the big moving pieces that have not been resolved in the Middle East. What are those big pieces? I'll go down them.
Nuclear Iran.
Wait, no, by level of current urgency. Okay. So Gaza and hostages is really high on that list. It's high on the list because of the eyes of the world are on this topic. It's high on the list because Israel needs to end that war, because the world wants the war to end, and because we can't get the hostages back without a ceasefire agreement.
And because the Israeli public wants to end this war with the hostages returned home. So it's like internal issue and pressure on Netanyahu. It's an international pressure on Israel and the United States to end this war.
As Israelis, we want to end this war without Hamas. That's super important.
Well, not just us, everyone in the world. So let's start from local.
Except for a few countries that want to kill you, that they don't want to end.
Well, God
they
bless
kind of
them
like Hamas,
God bless them specifically. So we'll start local.
Bless them with a missile to their headquarters.
That's Texan for bless their soul. Anyway, to our point, Gaza's the big one. Hostages and the end of the war there, which is people are calling the ceasefire. And then you zoom out. There's a regional component to this whole thing, which is very substantial, and it has to do with the countries in this area being part of the rehabilitation of the Gaza Strip and the Palestinian Authority, by the way.
I would say in the region at large. It's not like this is the only part that needs rehabilitation. You have Syria that just got, a new leadership after 70 years of civil war, including tyranny, chemical bombs that were launched at their own people. And you have Lebanon.
What's interesting, though, is, by the way, the list that we're presenting, all of this information has been leaked by different sources. None of it is fully official yet. And honestly, I don't think it really matters because it's quite accurate.
It's going to be said again.
In slightly different
we didn't see it, but
yes,
once it's aired, we will see it again.
So you have this list, and it starts local, and then it pulls in these other countries and says, be part of the solution. Now, they're not outlined specifically in any kind of trade deal or aid package or anything like that, but it's very clear by the identity of the countries that are part of this conversation, and we'll get to that in a bit, that they want to be back on the buddy list with the U.S., and let's call it that Western coalition. So you have that part. Then it gets more complex. Now we're talking about what happens with the Iranians, and that's like your point of this story. Because as far as Israel is concerned, and everything else that happens there, this whole thing is a package deal. It's not just Hamas separately; it's Hamas and also the PA and also the Iranians
and their proxies,
exactly,
which are the Houthis now.
Yes. So and all of this has to work together. It can't work as a one-piece thing. A ceasefire without all the hostages won't work. A aid package that doesn't pull in the Arab countries to govern while Hamas is being removed from the Gaza Strip, that won't work either. It all has to work in the way the plan outlines. And what it really shows you, and we've talked about this in the past, is that the U.S. administration and the Israeli one have spent a lot of time talking behind closed doors and building a plan that is comprehensive enough to really bring a solution to what's happening here.
Yes, exactly. But we see that it's even wider than that, because the moment that the Iranian influence was pushed back out of Lebanon with Hezbollah weakening, out of Syria with all the pressure and the influence of Iran on the Assad regime, now you have a vacuum. And very fast, the United States, very wisely, is trying to fill this vacuum with an economic cooperation deal that will include Egypt, will include Jordan, that need the financial support very, very badly, and political stability as well. And you have Lebanon that wants a future without Iran, without Hezbollah.
Yeah.
You have Syria that, according to the statement, wants also stability. We'll see how long that lasts and doesn't change into something worse. And then at the same time, you have Iran that all they have left is threats against the United States, against Israel, and also now against Europe, because they reinstated more pressure, more sanctions against them. And what they're doing is they're investing more in terrorism through the Houthis, which is the last proxy that are still operating against Israel in so-called support of the Palestinian people. So this is like a regional chess game, and it seems like we're going to hear some very, very good incentives for the majorities of the countries in the Middle East, including the Palestinian Authority, to be something better than what they've been up until now, with some mechanisms of supervision on how they govern the new Gaza Strip, which is one of the major issues that Netanyahu has with this deal.
I was going to say that the fact, and I want to dive into what you're saying, because this is really the question. The validity of this agreement or this idea is in the details, not in the big picture. Everyone knows.
Big picture sounds good. It sounds amazing.
It's not only that. Everyone knows what the big picture pieces are. They want Hamas out. They want the hostages back. They want the war to end. You're not going to find anyone on any side except for Hamas leadership who denies any of the main points.
But what does it mean, Hamas out?
How do you reach it?
How do you end the war?
How do you reach it, exactly? And that's where, and I think we're going to see in the next days and weeks, the stories come out from the conversations that happen behind closed doors in the UN General Assembly. And what we're going to hear is multiple countries, and I'm going to give some examples, who look at the map of interest on the table and they say, look, we understand that if Hamas is not removed, it continues to be a destabilizing force. And then there's a package, to your point, that says, look, but the PA isn't any better. The Palestinian Authority is very problematic. It's led by a dying, very elderly man.
It's very corrupt.
Very corrupt. It's a very ineffective
They are
organization.
paying salaries to the families of terrorists for life.
Which is what's known as pay to slay.
Yeah.
Terrible, terrible practice. Anyway, so people know there's a problem with these organizations. And part of the brilliance of this plan is the fact that it gives an answer to the problems. And it doesn't just say, we will remove Hamas without addressing who will. It says there will be a coalition of countries that in an interim period will replace Hamas in the civil governance of the Gaza Strip. Meanwhile, Israel will have a security buffer that allows the military forces, the Israeli military forces, to withdraw out of the Gaza Strip. It includes very, very substantial aid packages to help rebuild the Gaza Strip without Hamas being involved in it, which is important. And that's how the sort of the puzzle comes together in a way that is practical versus just a more declarative nature, such as people just saying we recognize a Palestinian state.
And it will allow the Palestinians that want to leave the Gaza Strip and give them an option to evacuate to other places. We'll see who wants to accept them, because I didn't see the details of that in the plan. But I saw that they will give around of $50,000 or $40,000 to each Palestinian family that wants to immigrate out of Gaza, but gives them still the option to return in the future if they want.
Yes.
So there is kind of conflicting issues, because there's another fact of this deal that says that UNRWA will be dismantled or not as effective in the Gaza
we need
Strip,
to hear something.
and that the Palestinian refugee status that never ends will be completely ended. But it kind of contradicts Tomer.
I think it's super important to tell our viewers that those 21 points that we got right now didn't come from any official. It's got leaked by the Qataris and the Saudis, and both of them are two major players in this whole game. So what we are actually getting now, it's a look that points that look not really good for Israel in some way. Or
why do you say that?
Because
because of Judea and Samaria?
First, and second also, especially about Gaza. Let's focus about Gaza. The GHF going to be closed, and the regular UN and the other organization that we know going to go back and help the Palestinians. If you just talk about taking
minus
Hamas
the people
out,
Yair just mentioned.
I'm not sure they're going to be minus, because they will have the
minus
options
UNRWA
of return as Hamas. It's looking like.
Tomer, let's go on.
Let's go on
point
on
by
what we
point.
know,
I'm curious to see all the points.
Okay, let's go through them, and then
I just want to say this for a second, though, before we go into the points. I think the main point here, the main point to take away from all of this, is that there has been a lot of thought put into this and a lot of relationship building that's happened in the sense of trying to really create a day after that doesn't include Hamas. That's really the most complicated, the most complicated piece in this entire conversation is exactly that. And that energy has been invested already into the neighboring Arab countries. And I want to say this, it's in the best interest of the Egyptians and the Jordanians and the Syrians and others in this region, and by the way, definitely the PA in Judea and Samaria, not to have Hamas in control when this all ends. Mm-hmm. They don't want them in control. They fear the Muslim Brotherhood, which is the ideological backbone of the Hamas movement. They fear them substantially and in a very valid sense, and they want something else, and they're willing to pay and play to make sure that happens. And in that sets up a conversation that is far more relevant and effective than what's happened before. And I want to take a couple of these points as an example. Everything that's in this list almost has been discussed previously. Ending the war immediately, withdrawing Israeli forces, returning all the hostages.
That was on the table.
The exchange of Palestinian captives or prisoners from Israeli prisons back to the Gaza Strip. All of this has already been on the table before. The difference is that it's a comprehensive plan, and the substantial difference is that someone, the U.S. and Israel, have made the rounds to loop in everyone who's relevant.
Make sure
to
that
this
everybody accept this plan.
Yes.
I doubt that they really talk to Hamas.
Except for Hamas.
Yeah, exactly. So
Hamas is not in the role. I gave you what Hamas said, that he don't have much information about the 21 points. And so for now, they're holding what they're saying. They're afraid with what it means that the IDF will drew his forces gradually, not in one time. So
okay, yeah. So I think that we should let's go over the list. Tomer, you want to go over the list?
No.
Let's just run through it really quick.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot of the points are really mundane.
No, but I think it's important.
We end the war immediately. All the hostages are released, and it's
within 48 hours.
Within 48 hours, and the emphasis is on the living hostages. Palestinian lifers, thousands of them, by the way, will be returned to the Gaza Strip and Judea and Samaria. The IDF will withdraw from the Gaza Strip according to a plan, but it's rather rapid. Unlimited humanitarian aid will be brought in through the UN and other international aid organizations. The GHF will be shut off. By the way, I can guarantee that clause came from the UN, that hate and fear the GHF because they're all about power and control.
Yeah, it offers
and nothing about humanitarian aid.
Yeah, or somebody else that does the job actually better than them.
Yes, or does the job at all.
Yeah,
they're not even ineffective. They're just counter effective.
Exactly. Hamas removed from governing the Gaza Strip.
Yes.
All offensive weapons of Hamas destroyed. Amnesty plus safe exit for Hamas members who pledge coexistence option to return later into the Gaza Strip. That's a very interesting one,
Yeah.
So, and then we have day after interim administration that will govern the Gaza Strip with the U.S.-led international experts monitoring it, and also Palestinian Authority representatives. Large reconstruction framework, including health, housing, education. Education, I think, is the key to any kind of coexistence between us and the Palestinians in the future, because for 25 years, they all have been brainwashed in the Gaza Strip and in Judea and Samaria to hate Israel, to hate Jewish people, that the only option is to conquer all of Israel and not to live side by side. Another option is no mass immigration. So Gazans remain if they want to. And then Palestinian Authority reforms, meaning the Palestinian Authority hopefully will be less corrupt with more transparency.
Hopefully.
Yeah, de-radicalization. As you can see, I'm pretty skeptical about some of these points.
Let me say something about this.
Because we all know that the Palestinian authorities today in Judea and Samaria and in...
It's completely irrelevant.
Yeah,
completely. It's irrelevant in every area of life. Irrelevant in civil governance, in security, in safety, and as a partner for Israel.
For peace.
Yeah, it's an irrelevant entity completely. Prime Minister Netanyahu gave an interview to Fox the other day on this topic exactly. And he said, this is ridiculous. How many times can you give them one more chance expecting things to be different this time around? You know they're corrupt. You know they're inept. You know they're led by weak leaders. Why would you try to bet on this losing horse once more? It makes no sense, and he's 100% correct in that. Why would we go with this kind of PA leadership when we know full well what it stands for and what it's able to do, and more importantly, what it can't do.
Yeah.
It can't change what it is to its core.
Exactly.
It has lost its trust to the Palestinian people long ago, definitely in Gaza, many places in Judea and Samaria.
Palestinians voted for Hamas instead of the Palestinian Authority when there was elections, 20 years ago almost.
Yeah, but even when it comes to just imposing security and preventing internal terrorism within the Palestinian Authority, they have a very hard time there with their own issues. Forget Gaza.
Yeah, so in terms of the security architecture that will remain in the Gaza Strip, you will have an international security coordination, meaning Arab and Muslim, so-called moderate states in charge of security.
Yeah.
A pathway to a future Palestinian state is conditional on reforms and security benchmarks of the Palestinian Authority to see that they actually can govern their own people in the future, and aid flows freely into the Gaza Strip, as you said.
Yeah. I have a question about one thing. The demilitarizing Hamas. Do you really believe that an organization as Hamas, that we saw many years, I don't know, from 2005, 6, fighting with, even before, fighting with weapon and growing up on the hatred that they do. Do you see them putting down the weapons without a fight?
No, and neither does Israel or the U.S., which is why the main piece that's going to remove Hamas is not actually in the 21-point plan.
It's the IDF.
It's
No.
It's the IDF's one part of it. We're killing their leadership. We're taking over the ground.
The Palestinian Authority.
We've
plus,
been raising
countries.
militias inside the Gaza Strip.
Yeah,
we're now 3 deep in militias within the Gaza Strip.
Yeah, there's
three different militias that are not Hamas.
Yeah.
That are propped up fighting against Hamas. Some of them succeed, some of them don't. Some of them, it depends what day of the week you ask.
Yeah.
But in general, there's an attempt that is very, very, very legit and serious in raising up competition for Hamas within the Gaza Strip. By the way, people might not understand this about Hamas. Hamas, even though they love it's the same as like Arab solidarity. Having these photo ops where it's like we're the leaders of, on the ground in Gaza and in Judea and Samaria to a greater degree, Hamas is tribal. Hamas is not led by central leadership that decides everything that happens. And within the Gaza Strip, there are heads of other chamulot, which is large families, clans would be a better word, that say to Hamas, we'd love to be supportive of you, we're happy to play along, but we want power, we want control, we want cash. And it's really like a war within the different factions. The way they mitigated that tension in the past is they had leaders from the different families that played a role within leadership of Hamas Gaza. That's not really the case anymore. The tensions there are far greater than they used to be, and they have trouble holding on to the entirety of the Gaza Strip, which is exemplified by the fact that we now see small militias that carve out pieces of land and say, no, we're controlling what's happening here, or we're distributing goods, or sometimes we're doing something else. We're fighting Hamas directly.
Yeah, and they're saying that they are freeing the Palestinian people from Hamas, and they are not firing at the IDF. They're controlling certain areas, especially in the south, in the Rafah area, because the IDF did a very successful operation in the beginning days of this war to clean out all of the Hamas infrastructure, terrorists, smuggling routes, and brought the Palestinian people southward, created almost a Hamas-free humanitarian area. And in these areas, you have resistance to Hamas that are becoming stronger and stronger. And as this war progresses and Hamas becomes weaker and weaker, they will grow stronger and go to the north. So it will be interesting to see how this agreement can utilize these groups to create a future leadership in the Gaza Strip.
Yeah.
So that will be a very, very interesting point.
Look, there's a breaking point somewhere where you have to have a moment of complete chaos and lack of control to be able to raise up a different kind of leadership.
That's true.
That just has to happen. Hamas is never going to go home with elections. They're never going to say,
There wasn't election.
excuse us, we were wrong about the path of violence, we repent, and we're going to go home quietly. That's never going to happen. They need to be removed by force. That force needs to be both external and internal within the Gaza Strip. And only that way, and when that happens, will they be able to be removed. At the same time, it's not at all feasible, or it's not at all impossible for external power to be dramatically effective in removing Hamas. The Egyptians can cut off all the tunnels in the Philadelphia corridor and make sure that nothing goes into to the Gaza Strip.
They
if
just
want
build
to,
a whole
they didn't do it for many, many years.
They just build a whole network of drones that coming out of Egypt and smuggle stuff into the Gaza Strip. They stopped with the tunnels. They moved to drones. That's the new problem after the high walls.
Look, I mean, honestly, I'm sure there's going to be. We should do content on this topic.
What, drone smuggling drones?
No, not drone smuggling. The fact
that sounds pretty cool.
The fact that some ones, probably multiple people, high in the Egyptian government, are probably profiting to the degree of hundreds of millions of dollars a year,
Mike,
from smuggling things into
Mike
into
Huckabee
Gaza.
just went immediately to Egypt to start first to stop a war that's happening between Egypt to Ethiopia, and to stop the war that's going to happen between Egypt to Israel, because it's looking like Egypt is on the edge of breaking down, especially because of money issues.
But everyone around us is.
Yeah. Besides,
and this is what's interesting.
Even us not in such a good shape.
No, but when you look at the list of the countries that the U.S. and Israel have been talking to behind closed doors in the UN, who is it? The Egyptians, the Jordanians, the Syrians, the Lebanese, the
Saudis,
the Palestinian Authority, and then you have sort of like on the back channel the Saudis and the Qataris in that conversation.
They're super important. It's like there is a inside fight behind the scenes between the Saudis and the Qataris about this issue of Palestine.
Yeah, but wait, before we get to them, my point is that all the immediate neighbors are very weak and fragile countries. That's part of the reason that they're so willing to be part of a conversation that has to do with removing Hamas and rebuilding, because they need that peace. They need that stability, and they need the U.S. support dollars more than we understand.
Yeah, and the longer that this conflict goes on, the bigger the chances are that these countries will collapse, because the Muslim Brotherhood and radical Palestinian groups are controlling in these countries vast areas and can topple the government easily if there is a little bit of a push.
And it's the fruit of their rotten leadership, let's be honest here, and imperialism by the British and the French that left behind funny country lines that mix between.
They don't make sense.
They don't make any sense. And we talked about this in the past, but it's worth remembering. The Egyptians are a country that has a massive part of their population that is underage, that are children. They have an unemployment problem. They have a food shortage to the point where it's not even a question of do you have the money to buy the food. They're not able to get the food. A year and a half ago, when the Russians were bombing the wheat carriers coming out of the Ukraine, the people in Egypt were on the brink of starvation, as in they were days away from running out of wheat to make bread. That's how tight it was. So people don't understand how unstable they are. The Jordanians, any day of the week, and I'm sorry, Jordan's a lovely country, but it's a very unstable government. They're 24 to 48 hours away from a coup, because there's a massive population there that is very much opposed to the government and hates Israel with a passion, that is willing to use violence to overthrow the government. And we know that because they've tried multiple times, both in the good old days of the PLO and after that with several smaller events that don't make global news, where you see how fragile and tenuous the relationship there is. Mm-hmm. Syria's the same. Lebanon's the same. So
Syria, we've seen every other day. There's an almost new civil war that is starting there. But you think that these agreements will bring prosperity to Israel, to the region? Because, we have been investing a lot in military actions, and people had to leave their houses and go to fight in this war, and small businesses closed. Tourism is smaller. We have a group here of 4 people. Usually it's 50 people that come and tour the land of Israel. And Mati, what would you say to our viewers if they want to help the people of Israel in a practical way during this, 730 days almost?
Yeah, first of all, I'm going to say we are strong. And the second one is there is a way for people to help out practically. There are multiple ways. Mm-hmm. But today we're going to talk about one specific one, which is called Arza Box. What people can do is, this isn't stock investment. This isn't sending money to the government or to an aid organization. This is helping people that are the artisans and the small businesses throughout this country who need someone to buy their products. They're not asking for a handout. Mm-hmm. They're not asking for a gift. They want someone to come and buy their products. And Arza Box does exactly that. Mm-hmm. They curate high-level gift packages from artisans and creators around this country, and then they send it to people around the world. And I say this with all honesty, I would be happy to get their packages.
It's a nice package.
I would be happy.
Listen, in the beginning days of the relationship with Arza, we got some packages. It was really nice here. Remember? It's like really the best of the best of Israel, boxed really nicely and shipped to your doorsteps.
Exactly. So people can buy from Arza. By the way, when they buy through our affiliates link, they get a 10% discount on the cost, and it helps us grow the channel. The website is www.arzabox, arzabox.com/TBNIL. That's TBNIL, and I hope it is on the screen. Good.
Yeah. And the coupon code is TBNIL, and you get an extra 10% out of your subscription. You help the small businesses of Israel, the people of Israel, not with donations, but actual buying stuff from Israel, helps the economy. And these are people that spent, some of them, 200, 300 days fighting in the IDF, closing the shops, no inventory, just taking a gun, going to defend this country. And this is a way to support them. And it really changes life. We've met some of these people. We've met some of these artisans. Some are from Jerusalem. Some are from the north. Some are from the south, areas that are affected by this war. So this is one practical way. Also, you get a really nice box to your house, and you will love it. Okay? So they are close friends and partners of the show. Plus, it helps us. This is one of our ways to keep producing content, to share the truth from Israel. Okay, so Mati, what is going to happen next week? Meaning, we had already the conversation between Trump and Netanyahu. We don't know what they spoke about, but hopefully it was all positive. They announced this deal. What's the practical first step?
So first, let's get our expectations
aligned.
Aligned with what happens in reality.
Who are we talking with?
Well, not just that. In geopolitics and in global change, nothing ever happens overnight. What we can hope for, and what I believe is going to happen, is a gradual change that is positive. And positive means that if every day and every week 5% of the issue or 3% of the issue goes away, within 3 months we're in a completely different place. And let me explain. We need to pull down the volume on the war in Gaza. That means reaching an agreement. The agreement will eventually be overnight, and I believe it will happen. There'll be an agreement between Israel, between Hamas, and multiple other countries that will be part of that. We will get the hostages back. I am very sad to say I don't think we're going to get all of them back. I feel like it's almost impossible for Hamas to be able to
know where they are.
To know where they are or give up on that heavy of a bargaining chip all at once. I hope I'm wrong, but that's my sense of this topic, and I think we need to be realistic about what we can get there. And then the aid package and then pushing out of Hamas, that's a long-term gradual process.
That will be hard, yeah. That will be because Hamas is not just an organization, it's an ideology. And it's an ideology that controlled the Gazan population for more than 20 years. And according to recent polls, they would vote for Hamas again if there were elections now. So how do you really push an ideology out of an area that has 2 million people?
You show them an alternative. That's the answer.
Which, so far, the alternative that is presented is the Palestinian Authority, which is terrible.
But so here's where things get complicated, which is these things only work when the U.S. and Israel and hopefully several other European countries create some kind of, let's call it a PMO, or like a directorate that manages this project that on an ongoing basis, and we're talking multiple years here, is pulling resources and pooling effect and power from multiple countries to build the infrastructure, to change the school system, to bring aid in, to fight the pockets of Hamas that remain, to confiscate weapons in the Gaza Strip, to police the population, and on and on and on the list goes. It's a very long and expensive process, but that's the only way to do this without just causing absolute mayhem in the Gaza Strip. That's the reality here.
Well, first of all, the Gaza Strip doesn't have enough houses to host all the Palestinians in the moment. The people of Gaza will have to live in the humanitarian centers for many years until the Gaza Strip will be rehabilitated, or some countries will accept to take them as refugees.
Yes, but let's be honest here. In every conflict, everywhere in the world, when a war breaks out, you move the population out of the conflict zone and into tent cities that are in other places. They stay there for X amount of months until the war is over.
Or years. Yeah.
Or years. Many months sometimes. That turns into years. And then when the war is over, there's a rehabilitation and rebuilding process that takes place, and then they go back to their homes. This is the only conflict, and you can check me on this, where the terrorists are actively preventing people from fleeing the war zone, and all the countries around the world look at it and say, you're right, let's not let them leave the war zone. Only here does this happen. In every other conflict, go to the Ukraine, go to South Sudan right now.
And Syria.
Go to Syria, and every other place, the civilians get in their cars, get on their donkeys, get on their horses, and leave the war zone, and everyone opens the gates and lets them in. Not here. Here it's the opposite.
Everybody closes the gates, and everybody, meaning Egypt, basically.
Yeah.
Because, of course, we don't going to let our enemies come in after they attacked us. So this is the situation.
So all that to say, yes, it's going to happen in a gradual sense. And then I think really the regional piece is the last really big piece. And that is global. I mean, this has to be IMF, International Monetary Fund.
IMF sounds like a Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
It
is.
Right?
No, it's
MIF?
Something. Anyway, IMF is the
International Mission Force or
anyway,
something.
So this is actually
Anyway, I need
else.
To go to watch the movies of Tom Cruise again.
IMF is the International Monetary Fund, and they're the people that bankroll countries that are in trouble. They lend the money so they can rebuild their economy.
I'm checking what's IMF.
You get the IMF involved.
Yeah.
And then you get other countries involved. and then you rebuild the economy of the Gaza Strip. And the process goes on and on and on, and you rebuild the countries around us, and then you create this virtuous cycle. And all the while, you have to make sure that the Iranians don't go back to the bomb, that they don't start terrorizing the sea again. It's this very, very complicated move that needs to happen.
IMF, impossible mission force.
Okay.
From the Tom Cruise Mission Impossible.
Less financially effective than the IMF banking one.
I'm afraid that one day we will have all over 7th of October coming out of all those small terror organizations that showed power in this war and, I don't know, have hatred towards Israel. That's one. But every time that the story between us to the terror organization trying to attack us and with the Palestinians happening, it's looked like we find a solution and then we find out that we put ourselves in a harder place or a pointless place. Do you think that now something going to change about it? Something will look different in this future that we're standing before?
I think that the difference in this situation is, as we're speaking, the IDF is still maneuvering in Gaza City, destroying terror targets, destroying the huge observation buildings that Hamas is using to conduct terrorist activities against our forces, searching for the hostages, moving the Palestinian population south to the humanitarian zones. So every day that this war progresses, Hamas is being dealt with more and more losses of territory, losses of governmental symbols, meaning squares, city centers, refugee camps that were the heart of this organization and its support. And the more this war drags on, Hamas is also losing, and not just Israel is losing from the international pressure efforts on it. So within 3 months, the IDF can conquer Gaza City and basically all of the Gaza Strip completely. And that is a loss for Hamas. So they're also like between a rock and a hard place. Or like, as Tomer likes to say, in a sheepskin, a snake in a sheepskin or something.
And anyway, yes. So Hamas is in a complicated place, and that is important to note. What I think is different this time around is that the U.S. administration and the Israeli government are sort of a unique moment in time. You have two governments that both have time in office. So they have a year, 2 years to work. Easy. To work intensely on this project. 2, they're leaders that have a lot of power, globally and locally. 3, the Americans under Trump, they have a sense of urgency, but also the ability to execute complicated moves. We've seen them do this a lot lately. And when you combine those different factors, and the fact that the public around the world is wanting this to end, and that the Arab countries' interests align with this issue, and that people are tired of the Iranians, and tired of the nonsense-like statements in the UN General Assembly, this is sort of the time that this could happen. Now, the problem is, it's likely not going to happen at 100%. It's likely going to happen at 75% or 65% maybe. And that's good, but it's not enough. It's not enough to really resolve, because removing the cancer that is Hamas from the Gaza Strip and from the Palestinian people is a painful and expensive and long process. Rehabilitating countries around us in this region, same. And it takes an ability to run a long race that not all countries have, do so for an extended period of time with a lot of money and a lot of focus on details. And that's really where I think we're in a unique place in time, where we have the energy to do that right now. Israel does. The Americans do. There's an international pressure on everyone to sort of engage in finishing this all up, and a lot of international momentum on this topic. If ever there was a time, now is the time.
And what I'm going to hear in the next days is the response from Hamas saying, we will evaluate this. We don't believe that the IDF will withdraw. We need guarantees. And I feel that they're going to drag this out, kind of like the Iranians are dragging the nuclear negotiations deal. And what will happen is will be just more ground maneuvering in the Gaza Strip. That's kind of my 2 shekels on this.
Can we be honest about what's actually happening in the Gaza Strip right now?
Yeah, we can.
And what I'm saying is not classified information, but I want to be clear. There are less forces now in the Gaza Strip than there were in the other times around.
Easily.
We all know this.
Yes.
And the IDF is making some very, very... They're stating big numbers, but they're not stating the exact numbers of the soldiers. Because what are they saying?
Five divisions.
5 divisions. Are there a number of brigades that match 5 divisions in the Gaza Strip right now? Absolutely not.
3 active, 2 supposed to keep
Yeah, but they're not like filled to 120% with soldiers.
So what it is, there's 5 brigade commands that are running the war, but they're not fully staffed as 5 full mobilized brigades.
But there is no need to have 5 fully staffed brigade in Gaza after 2 years of war almost. The focal point is the Gaza City area.
We also
plus
the
Hamas is not the same military that it was in the beginning.
Blankets and
it's not
improvised RPGs.
I'll explain. The whole move that the IDF is carrying out right now, and we've sort of deviated from the topic. I'll just make a quick point.
It's interesting, this part.
The whole move that the IDF is making is a complete squeeze of Hamas out of the last strongholds. And to do that effectively, the only way where it's possible is you have to hold on to all the terrain. There's no way you can do this with raids on different areas. You do it by controlling the routes of passage. You do it by controlling the aerial assets, by having men and machinery, and women, of course, in the Israeli army, at the exits of the tunnels, at the areas, scanning the people that are moving between the different places. It doesn't work when you're just one force moving through an area and the terrorists in the population move around you. It doesn't work that way. So you have to have, if you really want to take control of everything, you have to have a massive amount of people controlling the terrain. That's why you see a discrepancy in what the IDF chief of staff is saying versus what the Israeli government is saying. He's saying openly, guys, I want to be realistic here. This is not a sprint. We need months of work just for Gaza City alone. He's talking about right now we're at the end of September. He's talking about sometime in the beginning of next year for only the Gaza City operation.
Yeah, but it's also because the political echelon of Israel is giving a certain message to the people of Israel and then a different message to the world. One is like, we're going to end this war fast. And the other one is we do not want to lose any more IDF soldiers. So we're going to take each step very carefully, slowly, to make sure that our soldiers are not harmed in this war. And it's two different things that don't go side by side.
Yeah.
So there is a siege over Gaza City. The IDF is advancing, but it takes time. Plus, this is like one of the world's most densely populated areas. So it's very hard to operate there when every meter has a terror tunnel that a terrorist with an RPG, trained or not trained, can just pop out and take out an entire tank or 5 soldiers or a unit or an APC. So the stakes are very, very high.
Yeah, they always will be when you're fighting in a densely populated urban area. That's the reality we have to deal with.
Yeah, with civilians.
And the reality just is the IDF needs to end the war. Armies are not meant to be stagnant. They're not meant to be immobile. They're supposed to be mobilized. They're supposed to be in movement. They're supposed to be always on the offensive and never on the defensive. Defensive is where you're vulnerable and dangerous. And that's where we are. And predictable, yeah. We don't want to be there. We don't want to be fighting the never-ending war. That's not who we are. That's not what we want to do. Mm-hmm. We want this to be resolved, but huge asterisks, we want the hostages back.
Asterisks? What's asterisks?
Chavit.
Cool. New one. Okay, good. Like it. Okay, Tomer, I want to hear from you what's going to happen next week.
Next, no idea.
No guess. No idea. Nobody knows.
My guess is going to be a second round against Iran very soon, but that's a guess.
Wow, that's a completely new arena.
What are you basing this off?
The snapback is going back. There is much more pressure on the IRGC, and it's looking like they pushing more to say declaration of coming back to the war. And they really blame Israel and America over that. It's look like they moving more forces to the Houthis and to Africa. They're sending more money to revive the IRGC belief in other countries. So they're exporting their ideologies. So we're going to hear from them. It's like the evil master that even when he loses, he's like laughing on the side and planning the next attack. So maybe we will pass that, but there is a lot more coming in our future. And with that, there is the whole story with Russia crumbling down now, and everything is mixed up and connected somehow. So let's see. Let's just watch.
Mati?
I don't know. I feel like there are a lot of moving pieces that we don't know about the Iranians. I don't think there's going to be another violent round, Tomer. I think you're wrong. I think I'll tell you what I think there's going to be. I think we're going to see a surprise ally of the Iranians be able to squeeze enough to cancel or postpone sanctions. The Russians possibly, the Chinese possibly, maybe some kind of European alliance that is trying to work against the E3. That's my sense when it comes to them. But if we're on speculation,
let's talk about Gaza.
Let's talk about Gaza. I think Gaza is going to end.
Yeah, me too.
That's my sense.
The next week.
I don't know if in the next week. I think it's going to take several weeks to end it.
Even
I think in the next
months.
week you're going to see the outline of the agreement. That's what I think you're going to see.
Interesting.
And I think you're going to see a huge alliance of countries that are pushing forward towards a deal, and a lot of pressure on Hamas itself to carry out the deal, and a huge amount of pressure also by international. Let me just give you one example. Think about it this way: if the Qataris are fully back in the picture and they want to be the ones bringing forth the deal, they have a chokehold on Hamas leadership. Do you think the American president can't call the Turks and say, guys, whatever Hamas leadership you have in your country, put the squeeze on them. We want them to bring forth an agreement. There's a lot of levers of power that you can use to really get this kind of effect. I think people underestimate how much exists when there's a lot of people that want it to happen. My problem is I don't think Hamas is able to deliver on all the hostages. I hope I'm wrong. That's my sense.
By the way, Yair, next week, everything going to be about the flotillas that coming for Gaza, because Turkey just sent the ships to
Also Italy.
secure
Also
yeah.
Italy sent.
So they securing the flotillas that going to get to Gaza. So let's see what will happen with that.
Well,
It's
I
another
think
international.
let's see what happens. But anyway, I think Hamas will stall, will not accept any kind of deal, and we will continue with the ground maneuver and the military pressure against them until hopefully we find the hostages with a military operation and reach an agreement like that, while at the same time the war against the Houthis in Yemen will intensify, because that's where Iran is going to launch all their efforts and money against Israel. That's kind of my perspective on this. But, we'll see. Everything changes here very fast. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And we have a question from our guests here at the studio. Come on up.
Thank you, brothers.
Hello, good to have you here.
My question is your thoughts on the IDF soldiers with the PTSD and the higher suicide rate that's happening.
What's the question?
Yeah, you remember the episode?
What do you think about it?
What are your thoughts about it?
Well, I think it's a very, very important situation to deal with as a nation, not just the IDF soldiers. It's about the children that for more than 720 days are rushing to bomb shelters once a week. I'm talking about my children. And when they hear the ice cream truck in the United States when we went on vacation, they immediately rushed and looking for a bomb shelter in the area. The first thing they asked me when we got on the plane was, where's the bomb shelter on this thing? What happens when we hear the sirens if we're flying abroad? And this is an entire generation that is raised under, it's not PTSD yet, because we are still in the trauma, in the traumatic stage. We'll see in the next 10 years the effects of this on the society and the children and us. And related to the IDF soldiers, it's a very tough issue. The IDF is dealing with it. And even since the beginning of this war, soldiers that fought over, 2 weeks or 3 weeks inside the Gaza Strip, inside the north, basically anywhere that there is active combat, they got out of the army. They weren't sent immediately home. They were sent for a week orientation to talk about their feelings, about what they went through with other soldiers. It's good. It's not enough, because that's not even scratching the surface of healing the situation. But from a spiritual point of view, the enemy is attacking the most important unit, which is the family unit in Israel. So a number that nobody's talking about is the number of families that are torn apart because of this war, because it's hard to be apart from your spouse, to leave your job, to leave your routines for so long. And this is where the enemy is trying to attack the people of Israel by trying to, harm the children, the family unit, and then the mental state of the fighters. I would say it's a combination of prayer and of programs to help and rehabilitate the fighters of Israel, their families. We need a lot of counselors here in Israel.
Yeah.
So if people, want to come and volunteer, I think this is an area that would be the number one need in Israel for the next 10 years, is counselors, is people to help and deal with these post-traumatic events, because we're not at the post-traumatic phase. We don't have time to deal with the trauma because we're still running to bomb shelters. So
I don't know. Yeah, it's a painful topic. I'm trying to think what I can say that can actually add to the conversation. There's a lot of people that have taken this very hard, taken the war very hard. And I think it's important to be honest about how terrible violence and war are. Israeli soldiers are unified. They fight together as a unit. They care deeply about the mission. And yet our souls are not meant for this kind of life. I think that's a truth that needs to be contended with. And people have a deep hope to live a life of peace and of substance that is not that is not war. And the Israeli psyche, the Israeli zeitgeist, the Israeli mentality and narrative is not one of violence, is not one of hatred, it is one of love and life-giving. And it is hard on the Israeli soul and the Jewish soul to live a life that is bound by warfare. And my prayer for our kids, my kids, Yair's kids, all of our kids, is that they don't have to live that violence again. And it's not just being the victims of it as civilians at home. It's having to go to wars, is inflicting violence. Thankfully, I want to say this, even though things are, you hear these negative stories in the news, overwhelmingly and statistically speaking, very, very low rates of PTSD in Israel. By the way, because the moral justification is so absolutely overwhelming here, that historically there are very low rates of it within Israeli society. Just now there's been the majority of the adult population that is able to fight has been in uniform in the last couple of years. So it's
everybody that can walk there, and some that couldn't also fought in this war.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're at the point where it's just a numbers game now. Our government is trying. The military is trying. I think you're onto something, and we should have a conversation about this. Is the best thing that people can do right now is, if you're counselors and therapists, or make yourself available on Zoom, or come to Israel and volunteer and help people, because there's a huge need. We've been at war on multiple fronts. My kids had to have like a sit-down explanation with a map to understand which country was attacking us now.
What? All the way over there, I need to scroll in the atlas to reach Yemen.
But it's a valid question, and I'd say there's also a question here that has to do with prayer. It's praying for the hearts, the souls, the minds of the people of Israel to be resilient, to be strong. People that have a goal and have a faith and have a joint direction, they experience fear in a very different way. And Israel has been blessed with a strong sense of collective direction and purpose as a nation, and that safeguards our hearts to a certain degree. But still there's an element of fear. I'd say, so pray for people in Israel, pray for the children of Israel, donate to organizations that help with post-trauma and all that stuff, and make yourself available if you're someone who's able to do those kind of things. A great question.
Thank you very much it's a touchy subject. I know it is. And one more, please.
Yeah, sure.
On a personal note, what are your hopes for the outcome of the war?
Well, definitely. First one is easy, to have the hostages back home. To their families. That will be the happiest day for the entire nation of Israel. They're not just these Israeli hostages. They're part of everyone's day-to-day lives. Like my wife, my father-in-law, they all picked a few hostages to pray for them since the beginning of this war. And each of these hostages are just a member of the family.
You were at the Rosh Hashanah event, right?
Yes. What?
That we had a couple weeks ago. in the company.
Yes. Yeah, of course.
We were. I want to tell you how close this is. In most Israeli companies will have a Rosh Hashanah, a toast for the high holidays.
For the New Year.
Yeah, so we had, it wasn't everyone, let's say part of the members of the team got together in like the headquarter offices outside of Jerusalem. And one of those people is Rebecca, who worked in an office literally one door down from the office I sit in when I'm not here at the studio. And her husband, Elkanah Buchbut, is in... Am I mixing up the name?
No.
Elkanah Buchbut, yeah.
In Gaza.
He's in Gaza. His face has been in videos released multiple times by Hamas. This is how close it is to home for people. We know these people. I've met them. You know, this isn't some random individual. These are fathers, sisters, brothers, grandmothers. You know, it's people whose bodies are being held or people are being held. We need to get them back. There's no question about that. And also, I think the world needs to be far more clear on the fact that it's a illegitimate course of action to accept that civilians can be kidnapped and used for years as bargaining chips. It should not be accepted. I think that's something that needs to be clear.
So that's the number one thing. The second thing I wish for the new year, and I'm an optimistic. I believe and hope that we will have defeated Hamas, return the hostages, and have a regional cooperation and more peace treaties with Lebanon. I believe Lebanon is the next country that will have a normalization agreement with now that Hezbollah is out. I hope that we'll have a security arrangement that will keep us safe from the Syrians with the new Syrian regime of El-Julani. And I hope that there will be something better, like kind of a future for the Palestinian people to aspire towards instead of just hoping to replace all of us here. I mean, it's big stuff. God can make it happen. Let me tell you just what God placed on my heart in the last few months. And it's always hard for me because I keep feeling that He tells me to pray for my enemies now. And it's very hard. And I was, struggling and confronting God about this. Why should I pray for them? And how should I pray for them? And I kept getting, you don't need to pray for them to succeed in launching missiles at you or to aim better. You need to pray for them to have a change of heart and to start loving the Jewish people instead of hating us so much. And it's possible because God can reach their hearts. And I think this is something that we can all pray for. Because, to be honest, most of these people in Yemen never met an Israeli, never met a Jew. So if the hatred is supernatural, then the love can be also supernatural.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think we're done.
Well, thank you very much, Mati. Thank you, guys from
Hemet, California.
Hemet, California.
Thank you, Mati.
I'm going to call you when I'm there. Don't worry about that. And when you guys are in Israel, make sure to call us, leave a comment, email, go to our website, tell us, I want to visit you guys, have coffee with you in the TBN Israel podcast studio in Jerusalem, and we'll love to have you over here. In the meantime, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem.
Amen.
Thank you very much, Mati.
Thank you, Yael.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tomer. May all of you have a Gmar Chatima Tova, which was a few days ago. Shana Tova. And see you again next time on TBN Israel, the podcast.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.